Canine, dog won't obey officer at border checkpoint. The crib he barked at was hiding more than a baby. What happened next will shock you to your core. A trained police dog disobeyed a direct order from his handler. But this wasn't just any ordinary day at the border. This was the day that saved a life that nobody even knew was in danger. If you're listening from anywhere around the world, drop a comment and let us know where you're tuning in from. And don't forget to share this incredible story with someone who needs to hear it. The desert sun hung low over the Arizona border checkpoint, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink that should have been beautiful. Instead, the fading light cast long shadows across the concrete barriers and chain-link fences that separated two worlds. Officer Maya Torres adjusted her sunglasses and glanced at her watch. 6:47 p.m. Another hour and her shift would be over. Beside her, a German shepherd named Scout sat perfectly still, his dark eyes scanning the line of vehicles waiting to cross. Scout wasn't just any dog. He was Maya's partner, trained to detect everything from drugs to explosives, and in 3 years of working together, he had never once disobeyed a command. Not once. The checkpoint had been unusually quiet that evening. Most days brought a steady stream of commuters, tourists, and truck drivers, but today felt different, the kind of different that made Maya's skin crawl, though she couldn't put her finger on why. A dusty blue SUV pulled up to the inspection lane, its engine purring softly in the evening air. Maya approached the driver's side window, her hand resting casually on her radio. Standard procedure, nothing to worry about. The driver rolled down his window with a smile that was just a little too wide. He was young, maybe mid-20s, with sandy hair and the kind of clean-shaven face that belonged in a college yearbook. "Good evening, officer," he said, his voice carrying a slight accent she couldn't quite place. "Evening," Maya replied, keeping her tone professional but friendly. "Documents, please." As he reached for his wallet, Maya noticed the passenger beside him. A young woman with dark hair pulled back in a neat ponytail, wearing a floral sundress that looked freshly pressed. She was pretty in an unremarkable way, the kind of person you'd forget 5 minutes after meeting them, but her hands were trembling slightly as she fumbled with her purse. "First time crossing?" Maya asked, making conversation while she examined their identification. "Actually, we cross pretty regularly," the man replied. His name was Jake, according to his driver's license. Jake Morrison. "My wife Anna and we visit her family in Mexico about once a month." Maya nodded, glancing at Anna's ID. Everything seemed to be in order, but something felt off. Maybe it was the way Anna's smile didn't quite reach her eyes, or how Jake's hands gripped the steering wheel, just a little too tightly. Or maybe it was the way Scout had gone completely rigid beside her. She handed the documents back through the window. "What's the purpose of your visit today?" "Just family stuff," Jake said, that same too-wide smile never faltering. "Anna's grandmother makes the most amazing tamales. We couldn't resist making the drive." That's when Maya heard it, a soft cooing sound from the back seat. She leaned slightly to peer through the rear window and saw a car seat, the expensive kind with all the safety ratings and cushioned padding. Inside was what appeared to be a sleeping toddler, maybe 2 or 3 years old, with curly brown hair and chubby cheeks. "Cute kid," Maya said, genuinely smiling for the first time that evening. "What's their name?" "Sophia." Anna spoke for the first time, her voice barely above a whisper. She's a heavy sleeper." Maya was about to wave them through when Scout suddenly stood up. Not the casual, alert posture he usually took when scanning a vehicle. This was different. His entire body had gone tense, his ears pinned back, and a low growl was building in his throat. "Scout, sit," Maya commanded, surprised by her partner's behavior. Scout didn't sit. Instead, he took a step toward the SUV, his growl growing louder. His eyes were fixed on something in the back seat, and every muscle in his body was coiled like a spring ready to snap. "I'm sorry," Maya said to Jake and Anna, who were both looking increasingly nervous. "My partner seems to be having an off day. Just give me 1 second." She grabbed Scout's collar and pulled him back a few steps. "Scout, what's gotten into you? Sit. Now." But Scout wouldn't obey. He strained against her grip, his attention laser-focused on that car seat. Maya had never seen him act like this before. Sure, he'd alerted to drugs or suspicious items plenty of times, but this was different. This was personal. This was desperate. "Everything okay out there?" Jake called from the driver's seat, his voice carrying a note of forced casualness. "Just fine," Maya replied. though her instincts were now screaming that something was very, very wrong. Standard inspection won't take much longer. She looked down at Scout, who was now panting heavily, his dark eyes darting between her and the SUV. In 3 years of partnership, he had never disobeyed a direct command. Dogs like Scout were trained to follow orders without question, to trust their handlers completely. So why was he fighting her now? The answer hit her like a physical blow, because he knew something she didn't. Maya straightened up and walked back to the driver's window, her mind racing. Actually, I'm going to need you folks to step out of the vehicle for a moment. Routine secondary inspection. The change in Jake's demeanor was immediate. The friendly smile vanished, replaced by something harder, more calculating. Is that really necessary? We're running late and the baby just fell asleep. You know how cranky toddlers get when you wake them up. I understand, Maya said, her hand now resting on her radio. But it's standard procedure, won't take long at all. Anna was gripping her purse so tightly, her knuckles had turned white. Please, she said, her voice cracking slightly. Can't you just let us through? We haven't done anything wrong. Scout chose that moment to let out a sharp bark, loud enough to make everyone jump. Then another, and another. His barking echoed off the concrete barriers, drawing the attention of other officers at the checkpoint. Maya felt her heart rate spike. In all their time together, Scout had never barked during a routine inspection. Never. He was trained to be silent, to alert through body language and positioning, not through vocalization. The fact that he was barking now meant he was trying to tell her something urgent. Sir, ma'am, I'm going to need you to step out of the vehicle now, Maya said, her voice taking on the authoritative tone she used when she wasn't asking anymore. Jake's jaw tightened. Look, officer, we really don't have time for this. The baby needs to get home for her feeding schedule. And step out of the vehicle, now. The tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a knife. Other officers were starting to take notice, and Maya could see her supervisor, Sergeant Rodriguez, walking over from the main building. Scout was still barking, his whole body vibrating with urgency. That's when Maya noticed something that made her blood run cold. The child in the car seat hadn't moved, not once. Despite Scout's increasingly frantic barking, despite the raised voices and the tension crackling through the air, the toddler hadn't stirred even slightly. What kind of child could sleep through that kind of noise? Jake slowly opened his door and stepped out, his movements careful and deliberate. Anna followed suit, but her legs seemed unsteady, like she might collapse at any moment. They both stood beside their SUV, looking like deer caught in headlights. Is there a problem here, Torres? Sergeant Rodriguez asked as he approached, his weathered face creased with concern. Scout's alerting to something in the vehicle, sir, Maya replied, never taking her eyes off Jake and Anna. I'd like to do a more thorough inspection. Rodriguez nodded. He'd worked with enough K9 units to know that when a dog like Scout acted up, there was usually a good reason. Go ahead. I'll keep an eye on our friends here. Maya approached the rear door of the SUV, Scout practically vibrating with energy beside her. She could see the car seat clearly now, and something about it made her stomach turn. The child inside was perfectly still, almost unnaturally so. Her skin had a pale, waxy quality that didn't look quite right in the fading light. What's your daughter's full name? Maya asked Anna, who was wrapping her arms around herself despite the desert heat. Sophia Martinez, Anna stammered, but there was something in her voice that didn't ring true. Maya made a mental note of the name and opened the rear door. The car seat was one of those high-end models with all the bells and whistles. But as she leaned in closer, she noticed something odd. The straps that should have been securing the child were loose, hanging at odd angles like they'd been hastily arranged. Scout pushed past her and stuck his nose near the base of the car seat, his tail rigid and his breathing rapid. Then he did something that made Maya's heart skip a beat. He whined. Not the happy, playful whine he made when he wanted attention, but a low, mournful sound that seemed to come from somewhere deep in his chest. It was the sound of a dog who had found exactly what he was looking for, and it wasn't good. Maya's hands were shaking as she reached toward the car seat. I'm just going to check on the little one, make sure she's okay, she called over her shoulder to Jake and Anna. Please don't wake her, Anna pleaded, and there was genuine panic in her voice now. She's such a light sleeper, and if she wakes up crying... But Maya was already leaning in, and what she saw made her breath catch in her throat. Up close, the child's skin wasn't just pale, it was almost gray. Her lips had a bluish tint that no healthy child should have. and when Maya gently touched her forehead, the skin felt cold and clammy. This wasn't a sleeping child. This was a child who had been drugged. Maya's training kicked in immediately. She checked for a pulse and found it, weak and thready, but there. The child was alive but barely conscious. Her breathing was shallow and irregular, and when Maya lifted one of her eyelids, the pupil was constricted to a pinpoint. "Rodriguez," Maya called, her voice tight with controlled panic. "I need an ambulance here now, and I need these two in custody." The next few seconds passed in a blur. Rodriguez was on his radio, calling for backup and medical assistance. Jake started to run but was tackled by another officer before he made it 10 feet. Anna collapsed to her knees, sobbing hysterically. Scout had stopped barking now, but he remained glued to Maya's side as she carefully lifted the unconscious child from the car seat. The little girl was lighter than she should have been, her body limp and unresponsive, but she was breathing, and that was what mattered. "What did you give her?" Maya demanded, looking down at Anna, who was still on the ground. "What kind of drugs?" Anna just shook her head, tears streaming down her face. I can't tell you. They'll kill me if I tell you." "Who will kill you?" Rodriguez asked, but Anna had already shut down, wrapping her arms around her head and rocking back and forth. The ambulance arrived within minutes, and the paramedics immediately went to work on the little girl. Maya watched them check her vitals, start an IV, and prepare her for transport, all while Scout sat at her feet like a furry guardian angel. "You did good, partner," Maya whispered, reaching down to scratch behind Scout's ears. "You knew something was wrong before any of us did." As the ambulance pulled away, sirens wailing, Maya turned her attention back to the SUV. If Scout had been alerting to the child's condition, why was he still acting agitated? She watched as he padded back to the rear of the vehicle and began sniffing around the base of the car seat again. That's when she noticed it. The car seat wasn't just expensive, it was modified. There were small holes drilled in the bottom that shouldn't have been there, and when she looked closer, she could see that the padding had been carefully removed and replaced. "Rodriguez," she called, "I think we need to take this car seat apart." Her supervisor joined her at the rear of the SUV, and together they began to examine the modified seat more closely. What they found made Maya's blood run cold all over again. Hidden beneath the padding was a small compartment, no bigger than a shoebox, but deep enough to hide things. Important things. Dangerous things. Inside the compartment, wrapped in plastic, were several items that told a story Maya wished she didn't have to piece together. A syringe with traces of what looked like sedative, zip ties in different sizes, a burner phone with a cracked screen, and most disturbing of all, a small stack of photographs. The photographs showed children, different children. All of them appeared to be unconscious, and all of them were in car seats just like this one. Maya's hands were shaking as she flipped through the images. There were at least a dozen different children, ranging in age from what looked like 2 to maybe 5 years old. Some she recognized from missing person reports that had crossed her desk over the past few months. Others were faces she'd never seen before, but the little girl they'd just sent to the hospital wasn't in any of the photographs. "Jesus Christ," Rodriguez muttered under his breath. "How long have they been doing this?" Maya didn't answer immediately. She was staring at the burner phone, thinking about all the implications. If Jake and Anna were part of some kind of trafficking ring, then the unconscious child in the ambulance wasn't their daughter. She was their victim. And if there were photographs of other children, then there were other victims still out there somewhere. Scout whined softly and pressed his nose against Maya's hand. When she looked down at him, his dark eyes seemed to be saying what she was already thinking. This was just the beginning. The hospital room was sterile and quiet, filled only with the steady beep of monitors and the buffed whoosh of the ventilator helping the little girl breathe. Maya sat in the uncomfortable plastic chair beside the bed, watching the rise and fall of the child's chest. Scout lay curled at her feet, his ears still perked and alert even in sleep. It had been 6 hours since they'd rushed the unconscious child to Phoenix General Hospital. 6 hours of tests, blood draws, and worried doctors whispering in the hallway. The good news was that she was stable. The bad news was that the cocktail of drugs in her system was unlike anything the medical team had seen before. "It's not just one sedative," Dr. Sarah Chen had explained earlier, her face grave as she reviewed the toxicology results. Someone gave this child a very specific combination of medications designed to keep her unconscious but alive. This wasn't an accident or an overdose. This was calculated. Maya had felt sick hearing those words. Calculated. Someone had intentionally drugged this little girl with the precise amount needed to keep her quiet and compliant without killing her. The thought made her stomach turn. A soft knock on the door interrupted her thoughts. Detective Lisa Park from the Phoenix PD entered, carrying a steaming cup of coffee and a manila folder thick with documents. "Any change?" Lisa asked, settling into the chair across from Maya. "She stirred about an hour ago," Maya replied, never taking her eyes off the child's face. "The doctors think she might wake up properly in the next few hours as the drugs work their way out of her system." Lisa nodded and opened her folder. "We've been busy on our end. Jake Morrison and Anna Valdez, those are their real names by the way, have been very chatty once they realized how much trouble they were in." Maya finally looked away from the hospital bed. "What did they tell you?" "Well, it turns out our suspicions were right. They're not this little girl's parents. According to Anna, they were hired to transport her across the border. $5,000 cash. No questions asked." "Hired by who?" Lisa's expression darkened. "That's where it gets complicated. They claim they don't know the real name of their employer. Everything was arranged through encrypted messages on that burner phone you found. They were supposed to deliver the child to a house in Tucson, get their money, and walk away." Maya felt a chill run down her spine. "And the other children in those photographs?" "Different jobs over the past 8 months. Always the same setup. Pick up a drugged child, transport them across the border, deliver them to a predetermined location. Jake estimates they've done this at least 15 times. 15 times? 15 children." Maya's hands clenched into fists as she processed the information. "Do we know who any of these kids are? Where they came from?" "We're working on it," Lisa said, pulling out several of the photographs they had found in the hidden compartment. "But here's the thing that's really bothering me. Look at these pictures closely." Maya studied the images, trying to ignore how wrong it felt to see unconscious children laid out like inventory. After a moment, she noticed what Lisa was getting at. They all look well cared for. Clean clothes, healthy appearance, no signs of abuse or neglect. Exactly. These aren't street kids or runaways. These are children who were loved, who had families taking care of them. Which means they were taken, Maya finished, the full horror of the situation hitting her. This isn't just trafficking, it's kidnapping. Lisa nodded grimly. And if Jake and Anna are telling the truth about doing this 15 times, then we're looking at a very sophisticated operation. Someone with resources, connections, and the ability to move children across international borders without detection. A soft whimper from the hospital bed made both women turn. The little girl's eyes were fluttering open, confused and unfocused. Maya immediately stood up, Scout rising with her. "Hey there, sweetheart," Maya said softly, moving closer to the bed. "You're safe now. You're in a hospital, and nobody's going to hurt you." The child blinked several times, trying to focus. When her gaze finally settled on Maya's face, her lips parted in a whisper so quiet they almost missed it. "Mama?" Maya felt her heart break a little. "What's your name, honey? Can you tell me your name?" The little girl's brow furrowed with concentration. "Emma," she said finally, her voice hoarse from the ventilator tube they'd removed an hour earlier. "My name is Emma." Lisa was already on her phone, calling the department to run the name through missing persons databases. Maya sat on the edge of the bed, keeping her voice gentle and reassuring. "That's a beautiful name, Emma. Do you remember your mama's name?" Emma's eyes filled with tears. "Mama Rose, she makes pancakes with blueberries, and she sings to me when I have bad dreams." "That sounds wonderful," Maya said, fighting to keep her voice steady. "Do you remember anything else about your mama? Where you live, maybe?" "We have a yellow house with a big tree in the front yard," Emma said, her words coming slowly as she struggled with the lingering effects of the drugs. "And Mama Rose works at the flower shop downtown. She always smells like roses." Lisa caught Maya's eye and nodded. They had enough information to start searching. A woman named Rose with a daughter named Emma, missing from somewhere with a flower shop downtown. It wasn't much, but it was a start. "Emma, honey, do you remember anything about the people who brought you here? The man and woman in the car?" Emma's face crumpled, and she shook her head vigorously. "They said they were taking me to see Mama Rose, but then the lady gave me medicine that tasted yucky, and I got very sleepy." Maya felt anger burning in her chest. These people had lied to a child, told her they were taking her to her mother, and then drugged her. The calculated cruelty of it was almost incomprehensible. "You don't have to think about that anymore," Maya said, gently stroking Emma's hair. "We're going to find your Mama Rose and bring her here to see you. Would you like that?" Emma nodded eagerly, and for the first time since waking up, she smiled. It was a small, tentative smile, but it was enough to give Maya hope. Lisa finished her phone call and gestured for Maya to step into the hallway. They left Scout with Emma, who had already begun petting his soft fur with obvious delight. "I've got some news," Lisa said once they were out of earshot. "We found her. Rose Martinez reported her 3-year-old daughter Emma missing from Hermosillo, Mexico 6 weeks ago. She owns a small flower shop, just like Emma said." Maya felt a wave of relief wash over her. 6 weeks. That poor woman has been going crazy with worry for 6 weeks. "It gets worse," Lisa continued. "According to the Mexican authorities, Rose reported the kidnapping immediately, but there wasn't much they could do. No witnesses, no leads, no ransom demands. The case went cold pretty quickly. And now we know why. Emma was already across the border and in the hands of traffickers." Lisa nodded. "Rose Martinez is flying in tomorrow morning. She should be here by noon." Maya glanced back through the hospital room window, where Emma was giggling softly as Scout gently licked her hand. The sight should have been heartwarming, but Maya couldn't shake the feeling that they were still missing something important. "Lisa, what bothers me is the timeline. If Emma was taken 6 weeks ago, but Jake and Anna were supposed to deliver her yesterday, where has she been all this time?" "That's exactly what I've been wondering," Lisa said. "Jake claims they only had her for 2 days before attempting the border crossing. So, where was she for the other 5.5 weeks? Maya felt that familiar chill again. There's another location, a safe house or holding facility where they keep the children before transport, which means there could be other kids there right now. The implications were staggering. If Emma had been held somewhere for over a month before Jake and Anna picked her up, then the trafficking operation was even larger than they'd initially thought. There was infrastructure in place, people caring for kidnapped children, a whole network dedicated to moving them across borders. Maya's phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Rodriguez back at the checkpoint. "Need you back here ASAP. Found something in the SUV you need to see." "I have to go," Maya told Lisa. "Rodriguez found something else in the vehicle." "I'll stay with Emma until her mother arrives tomorrow," Lisa said. "And Maya, good work today. If Scout hadn't alerted when he did." Maya didn't want to think about what might have happened if Scout had remained obedient. Emma would have crossed the border, been delivered to whoever was waiting in Tucson, and disappeared into a nightmare that might never have ended. "Come on, partner," Maya said to Scout as she returned to the hospital room. "We have more work to do." Scout reluctantly left Emma's side, but not before giving her one final gentle lick on the hand. Emma giggled again, and the sound followed Maya out of the hospital and stayed with her during the entire drive back to the checkpoint. Rodriguez was waiting for her in the evidence bay, where Jake and Anna's SUV sat under bright fluorescent lights. Every surface had been dusted for fingerprints, and the interior had been completely dismantled. "What did you find?" Maya asked. Rodriguez held up a small electronic device, no bigger than a matchbook. GPS tracker, hidden inside the spare tire. But here's the interesting part. It's not just tracking where the vehicle goes. It's also transmitting location data in real time. Maya stared at the device. Someone was monitoring their progress. "Gets better," Rodriguez continued. "We had our tech guys trace the signal. The GPS data was being sent to 3 different locations. One in Tucson, which matches what Jake and Anna told Detective Park about their delivery point. One in Hermosillo, Mexico, and one in Phoenix." "Phoenix? That's only 2 hours from here." "Exactly. And based on the signal strength and frequency, our tech guys think the Phoenix location is the primary hub, the command center, if you will." Maya felt pieces of the puzzle starting to come together. So, someone in Phoenix was coordinating the entire operation. They knew when Jake and Anna picked up Emma, they tracked their route to the border, and they would have known immediately when the delivery failed. Rodriguez nodded grimly. "Which means they also know we have Emma, they know Jake and Anna are in custody, and they know their operation has been compromised." The implications hit Maya like a physical blow. If there are other children being held at that Phoenix location, they're either already being moved or worse, Rodriguez finished. Maya's mind was racing. They had to act fast. Every minute they wasted gave the traffickers more time to cover their tracks, move their victims, or eliminate evidence. But they also couldn't rush in blindly and risk the lives of innocent children. Do we have an address for the Phoenix location? Working on it, Rodriguez said. The signal is coming from somewhere in the industrial district, but it's not precise enough for a specific building. We're going to need more time to triangulate the exact location. How much time? Maybe 6 hours? 8 at the outside. Maya felt frustrated. 8 hours was an eternity when children's lives were at stake, but there might be another way to get the information they needed. What about Jake and Anna? Have they been cooperative since their arrest? Anna's been crying non-stop, but Jake has been more talkative. He seems to understand that cooperating is his only chance of avoiding a life sentence. Maya made a decision. I want to talk to him. Rodriguez raised an eyebrow. You sure? Border Patrol doesn't usually get involved in the interrogation side of things. Scout saved Emma's life today. I want to make sure we save any other children who might be out there. 20 minutes later, Maya found herself sitting across from Jake Morrison in a sterile interview room at the Phoenix Police Department. Jake looked very different from the friendly young man who had smiled at her through his car window earlier that day. His sandy hair was disheveled, his eyes were red-rimmed with exhaustion, and his hands shook slightly as he reached for the water cup on the table. I want to help, Jake said before Maya could even introduce herself. I know what you must think of me, but I never wanted to hurt any kids. I swear to God, I never wanted to hurt anyone. Maya studied his face, looking for signs of deception. Then why did you do it? Jake's shoulders sagged. Money. Anna and I were drowning in debt. Student loans, credit cards, her mom's medical bills. We were about to lose our apartment, and I'd already been turned down for 3 jobs that month. So, you decided to start trafficking children? It wasn't supposed to be trafficking, Jake said quickly. At least, that's not how they sold it to us. They said we'd be helping reunite families, moving kids to their relatives who couldn't get across the border legally. They made it sound like humanitarian work. Maya felt disgusted by the lie, but she kept her expression neutral. Who approached you about this work? A guy named Carlos. We met him at a bar in Tucson about 9 months ago. Anna was crying because we'd just gotten another shut-off notice for our electricity, and Carlos overheard. He bought us drinks, listened to our sob story, and then offered us a solution. What did Carlos look like? Jake closed his eyes, concentrating. Mid-40s, maybe. Hispanic, but he spoke perfect English with just a slight accent. About 6 feet tall, muscular build like he worked out a lot. He had a scar on his left hand, right across the knuckles. Maya made mental notes. It wasn't much, but it was more than they'd had before. How did the arrangement work? Carlos would text us on the burner phone when he had a job. Usually gave us about a week's notice. We'd get instructions on where to pick up the child, what route to take, and where to make the delivery. $5,000 per job, cash on completion. And you never questioned why the children were always unconscious? Jake's face crumpled. Carlos said they were sedated to keep them calm during travel. He said a lot of kids got carsick or panicked when separated from their families, so the medicine helped them sleep through the worst part. It was a plausible lie, Maya realized, just believable enough to let people like Jake and Anna convince themselves they weren't doing anything truly horrible. Jake, I need you to think very carefully about this next question. Did Carlos ever mention where the children were kept before you picked them up? Not directly, Jake said slowly, but I remember one time, maybe 3 months ago, he was complaining about having to drive across town to check on the facility. He said something about the air conditioning being broken and how hard it was to keep the kids comfortable. Maya leaned forward. Did he say anything else about this facility? Any details at all? Jake was quiet for a long moment, his brow furrowed in concentration. He mentioned it was near the airport, said the noise from the plane's landing helped mask other sounds. Near the airport, in the industrial district. Maya felt her pulse quicken. They were getting closer. What about the Phoenix location? Did Carlos ever mention having a boss or working with other people? There was someone he called the doctor, Jake said. I got the impression this person was higher up in the organization. Carlos always seemed nervous when he talked about the doctor, like he was afraid of disappointing them. Maya's blood ran cold. Why did he call them the doctor? I don't know for sure, Jake admitted. But one time Anna asked if the medicine the kids were given was safe, and Carlos laughed. He said the doctor knew exactly how much to give each child based on their age and weight, and that no harm would come to them, as long as everyone followed the doctor's instructions precisely. A doctor. Someone with medical knowledge who could calculate precise dosages of sedatives for children of different ages. Someone who understood how to keep victims unconscious but alive during transport. Maya felt sick thinking about the clinical nature of the operation. Jake, this is very important. Do you have any idea how to contact the doctor directly? No, Jake said, shaking his head. Everything went through Carlos, but what? About 2 months ago, Carlos got a phone call while we were meeting to discuss a job. I could only hear his side of the conversation, but he kept saying, "Yes, doctor," and "I understand, doctor." At the end of the call, he mentioned something about a delivery to the clinic. Maya felt like she was starting to see the full scope of the operation. There was a facility near the airport where kidnapped children were held. There was a doctor who managed the medical aspects of keeping them sedated. There was Carlos, who seemed to handle recruitment and coordination, and there were multiple delivery points, including something called the clinic. What kind of clinic would need unconscious children delivered to it? Maya didn't want to think about the answer to that question. What do you think this clinic really was, and how many more children might still be trapped in this nightmare? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. The Phoenix Police Department's tech lab buzzed with activity at 3 a.m. Maya stood behind Officer Tommy Chen as he worked his magic on Jake's burner phone, his fingers flying across multiple keyboards while lines of code scrolled down several monitors. Scout lay at Maya's feet, exhausted but refusing to leave her side. "Got something," Tommy said, his voice tight with concentration. "The GPS coordinates for the Phoenix location just went active again. Someone's there right now." Maya leaned forward, studying the map on Tommy's screen. A red dot pulsed steadily in an industrial area near Sky Harbor Airport, exactly where Jake had suggested it might be. "How long has the signal been active?" Maya asked. "About 20 minutes, Tommy replied. "But here's the weird part. The signal strength is fluctuating, like someone's moving the device around inside a large building." Detective Park appeared at Maya's shoulder, carrying a steaming cup of coffee and looking like she hadn't slept in days. Could be someone cleaning house, moving equipment, destroying evidence. Maya felt her stomach drop. Or moving children. The three of them stared at the pulsing red dot on the screen. Every instinct Maya had developed in 8 years of law enforcement was screaming that they were running out of time. Whatever was happening at that location, it was happening now. "Do we have enough for a warrant?" Maya asked. Lisa shook her head. "Not yet. Jake's testimony helps, but we need more concrete evidence to convince a judge to authorize a raid on what could be a legitimate business." "What kind of legitimate business operates at 3 a.m.? "That's exactly what we need to find out," Lisa said. "Tommy, can you pull up property records for that address?" Tommy's fingers danced across his keyboard again. Within minutes, he had the information they needed displayed on his largest monitor. "The building is registered to Phoenix Medical Supply Corporation," Tommy read from the screen, "owned by Dr. Elena Vasquez. Clean record, no criminal history, been operating at that location for 4 years. Maya studied Dr. Vasquez's information. Mid-50s, medical degree from University of Arizona, specialized in pediatric medicine before moving into medical supply distribution. On paper, she looked completely legitimate. "What kind of medical supplies?" Maya asked. Tommy clicked through several more screens. "Looks like they specialize in equipment for private clinics and overseas medical missions, surgical instruments, monitoring equipment, pharmaceuticals." "Pharmaceuticals," Maya repeated, feeling pieces of the puzzle click into place. "What kind of pharmaceuticals?" More clicking, more screens of data. Tommy's expression grew darker as he read through the company's inventory records. "Sedatives," he said quietly. "Lots of them. Propofol, midazolam, ketamine, all the drugs that showed up in Emma's blood work." Lisa was already reaching for her phone. "That's enough for me. I'm calling Judge Morrison. If we can't get a warrant, maybe we can at least get permission for surveillance." While Lisa made her call, Maya studied the building's layout on Tommy's screen. It was a large warehouse-style structure with what appeared to be offices in the front and storage areas in the back. Multiple entrances, loading docks, and according to the city planning documents, a basement level that wasn't visible from the street. "Tommy, can you get us building schematics?" "Already on it," he said, pulling up architectural drawings from the city's database. "This is interesting. The basement was added 2 years ago, well after the original construction. Significant electrical upgrades too, way more power than you'd need for typical warehouse storage. Maya stared at the basement layout. It was divided into multiple small rooms, each with its own ventilation system and electrical supply, perfect for holding people without anyone knowing they were there. Scout suddenly lifted his head, his ears perked and alert. A moment later, Maya heard footsteps in the hallway. Rodriguez appeared in the doorway, his face grim. "We've got a problem," he said. "Carlos Rodriguez was found dead in his hotel room an hour ago. Single gunshot to the head." Maya felt the blood drain from her face. "Carlos? Jake's contact?" "The same. Tucson PD found him after the hotel manager complained about a noise disturbance. Professional hit, clean and quick." Lisa finished her phone call and rejoined the group, catching the tail end of Rodriguez's update. "Judge Morrison is reviewing our request, but it could take hours. What's this about Carlos?" "Someone's cleaning house," Rodriguez said, "eliminating loose ends, which means Dr. Elena Vasquez knows we're on to her," Maya finished, "and she's destroying evidence." Tommy's monitors suddenly erupted in activity. New signals were appearing on his tracking software, multiple GPS devices all transmitting from the same general area. "What am I looking at?" Maya asked. "Vehicle transponders," Tommy said, his voice tense. "At least 6 different vehicles just left the Phoenix Medical Supply building. They're scattering in different directions." Maya watched the red dots spread across the digital map like spilled blood. Some headed north toward Flagstaff, others east toward New Mexico, and one was moving south back toward the Mexican border. "They're evacuating," she said. "We have to move now, warrant or no warrant." "Maya, we can't just storm a private building without legal authorization," Lisa protested. "If there are children in there and we screw this up procedurally, every piece of evidence becomes inadmissible. And if we wait for paperwork while children are being moved or killed, we'll never forgive ourselves," Maya shot back. Rodriguez stepped between them. "There might be another way. Maya, you're Border Patrol. If we have reasonable suspicion that international trafficking is occurring, don't you have jurisdiction for an emergency intervention?" Maya felt her pulse quicken. Rodriguez was right. Border Patrol had broad authority when it came to suspected trafficking cases, especially when there was evidence of immediate danger to victims. "Tommy, print everything you have on that building. Lisa, I need you to coordinate with Phoenix PD for backup, but keep them at a distance until we know what we're dealing with." "This is crazy," Lisa muttered, but she was already reaching for her radio. "Maybe," Maya agreed, "but it's the right kind of crazy." 20 minutes later, Maya sat in the passenger seat of Rodriguez's patrol vehicle, watching Phoenix Medical Supply through night vision binoculars. The building looked innocuous enough from the outside, just another warehouse in a district full of them. But Maya could see lights moving inside, and there were still vehicles in the parking lot despite the early hour. Scout was in the back seat, fully alert and ready for action. Maya had considered leaving him behind, but Scout's ability to detect hidden compartments and concealed people had already proven invaluable. If there were children hidden in that building, Scout would find them. "Infrared is picking up at least 8 people moving around inside," Rodriguez said, studying his thermal imaging equipment. "Most of the activity is in the basement level." Maya's radio crackled to life. It was Tommy back at headquarters. "Maya, you need to know something. I just intercepted a phone call from inside that building. Someone was speaking Spanish. But I caught enough to know they were talking about disposing of the merchandise." Maya felt ice in her veins. In trafficking terminology, merchandise meant victims, and disposing rarely meant anything good. "We're going in," she told Rodriguez. "Maya, wait. Phoenix PD is still 15 minutes out." "We don't have 15 minutes. Maya was already out of the vehicle, Scout at her side. She approached the building's main entrance, her hand resting on her service weapon. The front door was locked, but she could see light coming from under a door marked Office, about 20 feet inside. She tried the handle and was surprised when it turned easily. Either someone had forgotten to lock it, or they'd left it open for a reason. Neither possibility made her feel good about what they might find inside. The interior of the building was exactly what she'd expected from a medical supply company. Shelves lined with boxes of equipment, surgical instruments in sterile packaging, and the sharp smell of disinfectant in the air. But underneath the antiseptic odor, Scout had detected something else. His nose was working overtime, and he was pulling her toward a door marked "Authorized Personnel Only." Maya followed Scout down a narrow hallway that led to what appeared to be administrative offices. But as they moved deeper into the building, the professional medical atmosphere began to change. The walls became bare concrete, the fluorescent lighting was harsher, and there were security cameras mounted in every corner. Scout stopped at a heavy steel door and began whining softly, the same sound he'd made at the border checkpoint when he'd found Emma in the car seat. Maya's heart started pounding. She tried the door handle, locked, but she could hear something from the other side, voices, speaking in hushed, urgent tones. Maya pressed her ear to the door and caught fragments of conversation in both English and Spanish, words like transport, schedule, and most chillingly, no witnesses. She radioed Rodriguez. "I'm at the basement entrance. Scout's alerting to something behind a locked door. I can hear multiple voices discussing transport and witnesses. Maya, wait for backup. Do not engage alone." But as Maya listened, one voice became clear enough to understand completely. A woman with a slight accent was giving instructions. "Load the remaining subjects into Vehicle 3. The flight to Guatemala leaves in 4 hours." Subjects, not patients, not children, not even merchandise. Subjects. Maya made a decision that would either save lives or end her career. She drew her weapon and kicked the steel door with all her strength. The lock gave way with a loud crash, and she found herself at the top of a stairway leading down into a brightly lit basement. What she saw below made her stomach turn. The basement had been converted into a medical facility, but not the kind that healed people. It was sterile and cold, with examination tables, IV stands, and monitors that looked more like an operating room than a storage area. But what made Maya's blood freeze were the small hospital beds lined up along one wall. 7 beds, 6 of them occupied by unconscious children. They ranged in age from what looked like 3 to maybe 8 years old. All of them had IV lines running into their arms, all of them were breathing but unresponsive, and all of them looked far too thin and pale. But it was the 7th bed that made Maya's hands shake with rage. It was smaller than the others, clearly designed for a toddler, and it was empty, but the restraints were still attached to the rail, and there was a clipboard hanging from the foot of the bed with Emma Martinez, age 3, transport pending, written in neat medical handwriting. Emma's bed, the bed where she would have ended up if Scout hadn't disobeyed orders at the border checkpoint. "Freeze, Border Patrol!" Maya shouted as she descended the stairs, her weapon trained on the 4 adults in medical scrubs who had spun around to face her. 3 of them immediately raised their hands, but the 4th, a woman with graying hair and cold eyes that Maya recognized from the photo as Dr. Elena Vasquez, was reaching for something on a nearby medical cart. "Don't even think about it," Maya warned, but Dr. Vasquez ignored her and grabbed what looked like a syringe filled with clear liquid. "You don't understand what you're interfering with," Dr. Vasquez said, her voice calm despite the gun pointed at her. "These children are being saved, not harmed." "Saved from what? Their families who love them?" Dr. Vasquez laughed, a sound that made Maya's skin crawl. "Saved from poverty, from abuse, from lives of desperation. My clients provide these children with opportunities they could never have otherwise." "Your clients," Maya repeated, feeling sick. "You're selling them. I'm facilitating adoptions for families who can provide proper care and education, families who pay well for the privilege of raising healthy, young children." Maya realized with horror that Dr. Vasquez actually believed what she was saying. In her twisted mind, kidnapping children and selling them to the highest bidder was somehow humanitarian work. Scout had moved past Maya and was sniffing around the occupied beds. His agitation was obvious, and when he reached the 3rd bed from the left, he began barking urgently. Maya glanced over and felt her heart skip a beat. The child in that bed was younger than the others, maybe 4 years old, with dark hair and features that looked familiar. Too familiar. "Rodriguez," Maya called into her radio without taking her eyes off Dr. Vasquez. "I need you down here now, and call an ambulance. Actually, call 6 ambulances." 6? "We've got 6 unconscious children down here, all drugged, all in need of immediate medical attention." She could hear Rodriguez's footsteps pounding down the stairs. When he appeared, his face went pale at the sight of the makeshift medical facility. "Jesus Christ," he breathed. "How long have they been drugged?" "That depends on when they were taken," Dr. Vasquez said matter-of-factly. "The youngest has been here for 3 weeks, the oldest for nearly 2 months. 2 months. Maya felt rage building in her chest. These children had been unconscious, held prisoner in this basement, for weeks or months while their families searched frantically for them. Why keep them unconscious for so long? Rodriguez asked. Compliance, Dr. Vasquez explained, as if she were discussing the weather. Conscious children are difficult to manage. They cry, they try to escape, they remember details that could be problematic later. Unconscious children are simply easier to handle during the transition period. Transition period to what? Dr. Vasquez smiled, and Maya wanted to punch her. To their new lives. My clients prefer children who won't remember their previous families. A few weeks of carefully managed sedation tends to cause significant memory disruption, especially in younger subjects. Maya realized the full scope of the horror. These children weren't just being trafficked. They were being deliberately brain damaged to make them more compliant for their buyers. Dr. Vasquez was systematically destroying their memories, their connections to their real families, their very identities. You're a monster, Maya said, her voice shaking with controlled fury. I'm a businesswoman, Dr. Vasquez replied, and you've just cost me a very significant amount of money. That's when Maya noticed Dr. Vasquez still had the syringe in her hand, and she was moving toward the nearest child's IV line. Drop the syringe! But Dr. Vasquez was already inserting the needle into the IV port. If I can't deliver them, then they're worthless to me. Maya didn't hesitate. She fired one shot, hitting Dr. Vasquez in the shoulder and spinning her away from the child's bed. The syringe flew across the room and shattered against the concrete wall. Dr. Vasquez collapsed, clutching her wounded shoulder and screaming in pain. The other 3 medical staff remained frozen with their hands up, too terrified to move. Rodriguez, get on the radio and tell those ambulances to hurry, Maya said, and find out what was in that syringe. She approached the nearest child, a little boy with curly brown hair who couldn't have been more than 5 years old. His breathing was shallow and his skin was pale, but his pulse was steady. The IV bag hanging above his bed was nearly empty. Scout had positioned himself between Maya and the wounded Dr. Vasquez, his teeth bared, and a low growl rumbling in his throat. Even wounded and disarmed, Dr. Vasquez radiated a malevolent energy that Scout clearly didn't trust. Maya knelt beside the little boy's bed and gently touched his forehead. It's okay, sweetheart. You're safe now. We're going to get you help, and we're going to find your family. The child's eyes fluttered slightly at the sound of her voice, though he remained unconscious. Maya felt a tiny spark of hope. If he was responding to stimuli, maybe the damage wasn't irreversible. Maya, Rodriguez called from across the room. You need to see this. He was standing beside a computer workstation that Maya hadn't noticed before. The screen was displaying what looked like a database with photos and information about dozens of children. It's a catalog, Rodriguez said, his voice thick with disgust. Photos, ages, medical information, behavioral assessments, and prices. Maya felt sick. How many children are in there? 43 active listings, but that's just the current inventory. There are archived records going back 3 years. 3 years. Hundreds of children. Maya's mind reeled at the scope of the operation they'd uncovered. But then Rodriguez pointed to something else on the screen that made Maya's blood run cold. At the bottom of the database was a section labeled Special Orders, with a list of specific requests from buyers. Requests for children with particular hair colors, ages, even personality traits. One entry made, Maya want to vomit. Client 47. Seeking quiet, compliant female, age 4 to 6, no prior trauma history, willing to pay premium for guaranteed memory suppression. They're treating children like they're ordering from a catalog, Maya whispered. It gets worse, Rodriguez said. Look at the shipping records. He clicked to another screen that showed delivery schedules. Children being transported to locations across the United States and internationally. Private jets, cargo ships, even diplomatic pouches. And then Maya saw something that made her heart stop. Among the recent deliveries was an entry for Emma Martinez, age 3, delivered to client 23, Phoenix, AZ, failed delivery. Subject recovered by Lee. Below that entry was a note. Client 23 requesting replacement, expedite delivery of similar subject. Someone in Phoenix had ordered Emma specifically, and when that delivery failed, they had requested another child just like her. Maya stared at the screen, trying to process the implications. Dr. Vasquez's operation wasn't just random kidnapping. They were fulfilling specific orders from buyers who wanted particular types of children. The sound of sirens outside interrupted her thoughts. The ambulances were finally arriving, along with what sounded like half the Phoenix Police Department. "Maya," Rodriguez said quietly, "we need to find client 23. She nodded, but her attention was drawn back to the 6 unconscious children in the hospital beds. Their nightmare was finally over, but Maya knew the real work was just beginning. They had to wake these children up, help them recover their memories, and reunite them with their families. And then they had to track down every single person who had bought a child from Dr. Vasquez's catalog of horrors. But one question kept haunting Maya as the EMTs rushed down the stairs to help the children. If Dr. Vasquez could erase a child's memory in just a few weeks, what hope did they have of these kids ever truly recovering from their ordeal? Could you imagine discovering that someone you know might be client 23? What would you do if you found out a neighbor had ordered a child like they were shopping online? Phoenix Children's Hospital had never seen anything like it. 6 unconscious children arrived within an hour, all victims of the same systematic drugging, all requiring immediate and intensive medical intervention. Maya stood in the pediatric ICU, watching through the glass as teams of doctors and nurses worked to stabilize the young victims. Dr. Rachel Kim, the hospital's chief pediatric neurologist, emerged from one of the rooms looking exhausted and deeply troubled. She pulled Maya aside to a quiet corner of the hallway. "I've been practicing medicine for 15 years, Dr. Kim said, and I've never seen anything this calculated. These children weren't just sedated. They were subjected to a precise cocktail of drugs designed to suppress memory formation while keeping them alive." Maya felt her stomach turn. What does that mean for their recovery? The good news is that they're all physically stable. We've managed to reverse most of the drug effects, and they should regain consciousness within the next few hours. The bad news, Dr. Kim paused, struggling with her words. The bad news is that we don't know how much permanent damage has been done to their memories. Permanent? Dr. Kim nodded grimly. The combination of drugs they were given specifically targets the hippocampus, the part of the brain responsible for forming new memories and accessing old ones. If they were kept unconscious for weeks or months, there could be significant gaps in their recollection. Maya thought about Emma, who had remembered her Mama Rose despite being drugged for transport. But Emma remembered her mother. She remembered details about her home. Emma was only drugged for a few days, and she's already showing signs of recovery. These children were kept under for much longer periods. The youngest boy, Danny, appears to have been unconscious for nearly 8 weeks. 8 weeks. Maya couldn't imagine the terror Danny's family must be going through, not knowing if their child was alive or dead. "Doctor, what are their chances of remembering their families?" "It's too early to tell. Memory recovery is unpredictable, especially in children. Some might remember everything, others might have spotty recollections, and some," Dr. Kim's voice trailed off, "and some might not remember anything at all. I'm sorry. I wish I had better news." Maya's phone buzzed with a text from Detective Park. "Need you back at headquarters. Major breakthrough on client 23. Maya left Scout with the medical team and drove back to the Phoenix Police Department, her mind racing with questions. Who was client 23? How many other clients were there in Dr. Vasquez's database? And most importantly, how many children were still out there, either in transit or already delivered to their buyers? She found Detective Park in the same tech lab where they'd tracked the GPS signals earlier. Tommy Chen was still at his workstation, but now he had 3 additional monitors running and was surrounded by FBI agents Maya didn't recognize. "Maya, meet Agent Sarah Rodriguez from the FBI's Crimes Against Children Unit," Lisa said. "This case just went federal." Agent Rodriguez was a compact woman in her 40s, with steel gray eyes and an air of quiet authority. She shook Maya's hand firmly. "Officer Torres, excellent work today. Your K-9's alert at the border checkpoint may have saved not just Emma's life, but dozens of other children as well. Thank you, but we still have work to do. Detective Park mentioned a breakthrough on client 23. Tommy turned from his computer. "We cracked Dr. Vasquez's database encryption. Client 23 is registered under the name Michael Patterson, and the payment records show he's made multiple purchases over the past 2 years. Maya felt her blood run cold. Multiple purchases? Agent Rodriguez nodded. According to the records, Patterson has bought 4 children from Dr. Vasquez's operation. 2 boys and 2 girls, all between the ages of 3 and 6. Where are they now? That's what we're trying to figure out, Lisa said. The delivery address on file is a residential property in Scottsdale, but when patrol units checked it out an hour ago, the house was empty. Looks like it's been vacant for weeks. Tommy pulled up a property record on his screen. The house was rented 6 months ago by someone using Michael Patterson's identity, but the credit card and bank account information all trace back to shell companies. Maya studied the information on the screen. So, Michael Patterson might not even be his real name. Probably not, Agent Rodriguez agreed. But we have something better than a name. We have financial records. She gestured for Tommy to switch to another screen, which displayed a series of bank transfers and cryptocurrency transactions. Dr. Vasquez was very careful about hiding her identity, but her clients weren't always as cautious. Patterson made his payments through a series of Bitcoin transfers, but he had to convert those payments from traditional currency somewhere. And currency conversions leave paper trails, Maya said, beginning to understand. Exactly. Tommy traced the Bitcoin purchases back to a bank account registered to MJP Holdings, LLC, which is registered to an address in Paradise Valley. Paradise Valley was one of Phoenix's most exclusive neighborhoods, home to tech executives, professional athletes, and old money families. Maya felt a chill as she realized that Client 23 wasn't some shadowy criminal operating from the margins of society. He was wealthy, respectable, and hiding in plain sight. Do we have a real address? Agent Rodriguez nodded. 14257 North Desert Hills Drive, a $4 million estate owned by Dr. Marcus James Patterson, a prominent child psychiatrist who runs a private practice specializing in adoption counseling. Maya stared at the address on the screen. A child psychiatrist who specialized in adoption counseling was buying kidnapped children. The irony was sickening, but it also made perfect sense. Who better to understand how to integrate stolen children into new families than someone who professionally helped with legitimate adoptions? We need to get to that house immediately, Maya said. Already in motion, Agent Rodriguez replied. SWAT is staging 2 blocks away, and we have surveillance confirming that Patterson is currently at home. But, Maya, there's something else you need to know. Tommy switched to yet another screen, this one showing what appeared to be medical records. We found Dr. Patterson's files on the children he purchased. He's been documenting their progress in detailed reports that he sends back to Dr. Vasquez. Maya looked at the reports and felt sick. They were written in clinical, detached language that described kidnapped children like they were research subjects. Notes about behavioral modification, memory suppression effectiveness, and integration success rates. One report made her hands shake with rage. Subject FF04, formerly known as Sophia, has shown excellent adaptation to her new environment. Previous family attachments appear to have been successfully suppressed through continued pharmaceutical intervention. Recommend reducing dosage gradually over next 2 weeks to allow for controlled memory recovery. Client satisfaction, high. He's been continuing to drug them, Maya whispered. Even after delivery, he's been keeping them sedated to erase their memories. It gets worse, Agent Rodriguez said. Keep reading. Maya scrolled down to another report. Subject M02, formerly known as Daniel, has shown resistance to memory suppression protocols. Continued references to mama and home despite 3 weeks of intensive treatment. Recommend return to Dr. Vasquez for enhanced protocol or permanent disposal. Permanent disposal? Maya felt like she was going to be sick. He's talking about killing a child because the boy remembered his mother. The report is dated 2 weeks ago, Tommy said quietly. If Daniel was returned to Dr. Vasquez, he might be one of the children we found in the basement. Maya thought about the little boy with curly brown hair, the one Dr. Kim had said was unconscious for 8 weeks. Could that be Daniel? A child who had been returned to Dr. Vasquez because he wouldn't forget his family? We have to move now, Maya said. If Patterson knows his operation has been compromised, he might... She couldn't finish the sentence, but everyone in the room understood. If Patterson felt cornered, the children in his custody were in immediate danger. Agent Rodriguez was already coordinating with the SWAT team through her radio. All units, this is Rodriguez. We are green for immediate breach. Suspect is considered armed and extremely dangerous. Priority is the safety of potential child victims on the premises. Maya grabbed her equipment bag. I'm coming with you. Maya, this is an FBI operation now. You've done enough. With respect, Agent Rodriguez, Scout found Emma, and Scout found the children in Dr. Vasquez's basement. If there are kids hidden in Patterson's house, Scout will find them faster than any search team. Agent Rodriguez looked like she wanted to argue, but Tommy interrupted from his workstation. Agent Rodriguez, you need to see this. I just intercepted a phone call from Patterson's house. He's talking to someone about cleaning up the loose ends before the heat arrives. Loose ends? In trafficking terminology, that usually means eliminating witnesses, Agent Rodriguez said grimly. Maya, get your dog. We're leaving now. The drive to Paradise Valley took 20 minutes through Phoenix's winding mountain roads. Maya sat in the passenger seat of Agent Rodriguez's unmarked vehicle, watching the neighborhoods grow more affluent as they climbed higher into the desert hills. Scout was alert and ready in the back seat, sensing the tension that filled the car. Tell me about your dog, Agent Rodriguez said as they approached the staging area. Scout's been my partner for 3 years. He's trained in narcotics detection, explosives, and missing persons. But more than that, he has instincts that I've learned to trust completely. Like his behavior at the border checkpoint? Maya nodded. Scout knew something was wrong with Emma before any of us did. He wouldn't obey my commands because he knew a child was in danger. Dogs can sense things we miss, Agent Rodriguez said. Scents, sounds, even emotional distress. If there are children in Patterson's house, Scout might be able to locate them, even if they're hidden or unconscious. They pulled up to the SWAT staging area, where armored vehicles and tactical teams were preparing for the raid. The Patterson estate was visible through binoculars, a sprawling modern mansion built into the hillside with multiple levels and extensive landscaping. SWAT Commander Jake Wilson briefed the team on the property layout. We've got eyes on the target through thermal imaging. We can see at least one adult male moving around inside, ground floor level. But the house has a basement level and a separate guest house that could be hiding additional occupants. Maya studied the building through binoculars. It was the kind of house that could easily hide children, with multiple rooms, soundproofed areas, and plenty of space to create hidden compartments. Commander Wilson, my K-9 specializes in locating hidden persons, Maya said. If you can get us inside safely, Scout can sweep for any children who might be concealed in the house. Wilson nodded. We go in fast and hard. Primary team takes the main level, secondary team secures the basement, and you and your dog sweep for hidden occupants once the scene is secure. As the teams prepared to move, Maya's radio crackled with an update from Tommy back at headquarters. Maya, we just got a match on one of the children from Patterson's files. A 6-year-old girl named Isabella, who was reported missing from Tucson 4 months ago. Her parents have been looking for her ever since. 4 months. Maya thought about Isabella's parents, who had been living in hell for a third of a year, not knowing if their daughter was alive or dead, and now they were about to find out. All teams, move in, Commander Wilson ordered. Maya watched from the staging area as SWAT teams approached the house from multiple angles. The front door exploded inward under the force of a battering ram, and tactical officers poured inside shouting commands. Federal agents, search warrant, get on the ground! Maya could hear the commotion through her radio as teams swept through the house, but there was no return gunfire, no resistance. Within minutes, Commander Wilson's voice came through clearly. Ground floor secure, 1 adult male in custody, no children visible on the main level. Basement secure, came another voice. No occupants found, but there are signs of recent habitation, multiple beds, medical equipment, and what appears to be a pharmacy setup. Maya felt her heart sink. If there were no children visible, had Patterson already moved them? Or worse, had he already carried out his threat to eliminate the loose ends? Maya, bring your dog. We need to sweep for hidden areas. Maya and Scout approached the house, which was buzzing with FBI agents and forensic technicians. Dr. Marcus James Patterson sat in the back of an FBI vehicle, his hands cuffed behind his back. He was a distinguished-looking man in his 50s, the kind of person you'd trust with your children without a second thought. But as Maya passed the vehicle, she caught his eye. What she saw there made her blood freeze. Patterson wasn't scared or ashamed or even angry. He was calculating, like he was already working out his next move. Don't trust anything he tells you, Maya told Agent Rodriguez. He's still planning something. Inside the house, Maya was struck by how normal everything looked. Expensive furniture, family photos, children's toys scattered around the living room. It could have been any wealthy family's home, except for the fact that the children in the photos all looked different from each other and different from Patterson. "Those are his victims," Agent Rodriguez said, following Maya's gaze. "He's been displaying them like they're his actual family." Scout was already working, his nose to the ground as he moved systematically through the house. Maya followed him down to the basement, where she found exactly what she'd expected, a medical facility that rivaled Dr. Vasquez's operation. Multiple hospital beds, IV equipment, monitoring devices, and a pharmacy that would have been the envy of most hospitals. But like the upstairs, there were no children present. "Scout, seek," Maya commanded, and watched as her partner began a more intensive search of the basement. Scout moved methodically through the room, sniffing around the medical equipment, under the beds, and along the walls. When he reached the far corner of the basement, he stopped and began pawing at what appeared to be a solid concrete wall. "Agent Rodriguez," Maya called. "Scout's alerting to something behind this wall." Rodriguez approached with a team of technicians who began examining the wall more closely. What they found was ingenious and horrifying, a hidden door disguised as part of the concrete foundation, operated by a concealed electronic lock. "We need the door code," one of the technicians said. "Patterson's not talking," Rodriguez replied. "Can we break through?" "Maybe, but if there are children on the other side, we could hurt them with debris or shock from the noise." Maya was studying the electronic lock when she remembered something from Dr. Vasquez's database. Many of the client files had contained access codes for secure areas. "Tommy," Maya radioed back to headquarters, "in Patterson's client file, were there any numeric codes listed? Security codes, access numbers, anything like that?" "Let me check," Tommy replied. After a moment, he came back with, "I've got a 6-digit code listed under Facility Access, 081503. Rodriguez entered the code into the electronic lock. There was a soft click, and the hidden door swung inward to reveal a narrow corridor leading to another room. Maya felt her heart pounding as she followed Scout down the corridor. The air was stale and carried the smell of antiseptic mixed with something else she couldn't identify. At the end of the corridor was another door, this one standing slightly ajar. Scout pushed through the doorway and immediately began whining in the same urgent way he had at the border checkpoint and at Dr. Vasquez's basement. Maya knew that sound by now. It meant children in danger. The hidden room was smaller than Dr. Vasquez's facility, but set up for the same purpose. 3 hospital beds, each occupied by an unconscious child. Maya's breath caught as she saw them. A little girl with dark hair who couldn't have been more than 4 years old. A boy who looked to be about 6 with the same curly hair as the child they had found at Dr. Vasquez's facility. And in the third bed, a girl who was older than the others, maybe 7 or 8, with blonde hair and features that looked familiar from the missing person reports Maya had seen. "Isabella," Maya whispered, recognizing the girl who had been missing from Tucson for 4 months. All 3 children were unconscious with IV lines in their arms, just like the victims they had found earlier. But there was something different about this setup. The IV bags contained different solutions, and there were additional monitors tracking brain activity. "Agent Rodriguez," Maya called urgently, "I need medical personnel down here immediately. We've got 3 unconscious children, and they appear to be connected to some kind of experimental equipment." As Maya waited for the EMTs to arrive, she studied the setup more carefully. Unlike Dr. Vasquez's operation, which seemed focused on keeping children sedated for transport, Patterson's facility looked more like a research laboratory. There were detailed charts tracking each child's response to different drug combinations, brain scans showing activity levels over time, and most disturbing of all, before and after psychological assessments measuring memory retention. Patterson hadn't just been buying children, he'd been experimenting on them, testing different methods of memory, suppression, and behavioral modification. The children in these beds weren't just victims of trafficking, they were guinea pigs in some twisted medical experiment. Maya's radio crackled again. It was Agent Rodriguez from upstairs. "Maya, we've got a problem. Patterson just lawyered up and invoked his right to remain silent. But before he stopped talking, he said something you need to hear." "What did he say?" "He said, 'You're too late. The other facilities are already being sanitized.'" Other facilities. Maya felt her blood run cold. If Patterson's operation was just one node in a larger network, then there could be dozens of children still in danger at other locations. Scout had positioned himself protectively near the children's beds, his eyes fixed on the doorway like he was standing guard. Maya realized that these 3 children owed their lives to Scout's instincts at that border checkpoint. If he hadn't alerted to Emma's condition, they never would have uncovered the trafficking ring in time. But as Maya looked at the unconscious faces of Isabella and the other children, she couldn't help but wonder how many more facilities were out there. How many more children were being held in hidden rooms, slowly having their memories and identities erased? And most terrifyingly, how many had already been sanitized before they could be found? If Patterson's operation was just one piece of a bigger puzzle, what do you think happens to the children who were in the other facilities he mentioned? The Phoenix FBI field office had transformed into a war room. Multiple task forces were working around the clock to track down every lead from Dr. Vasquez's database and Patterson's research files. Maya sat at a conference table surrounded by federal agents, local detectives, and victim specialists, trying to process the scope of what they'd uncovered. Agent Rodriguez stood at a whiteboard covered with photos, maps, and timeline markers. In the past 48 hours, we've identified at least 12 other clients in Dr. Vasquez's database. They're spread across 6 states and 3 countries. Maya looked at the board and felt overwhelmed. Each photo represented a child who had been stolen from their family. Each location marker showed where those children might be hidden, and each timeline entry documented months or years of systematic abuse. "What about the children we rescued?" Maya asked. "Any updates on their condition?" Dr. Sarah Chen, who had become the primary medical coordinator for all the victims, pulled out her tablet. "The good news is that all 9 children are now conscious and medically stable. The bad news is that the memory effects vary significantly from child to child." "What do you mean?" "Emma, who was only drugged for a few days, has retained most of her memories. She's been reunited with her mother and is showing signs of psychological recovery. But the children who were held longer—" Dr. Chen's voice trailed off. "Doctor, please, I need to know." Isabella remembers her name and some basic facts about herself, but she doesn't recognize her parents. When they flew in from Tucson yesterday, she treated them like strangers. The trauma isn't just psychological. The drugs have caused actual neurological damage. Maya felt sick. Isabella's parents had waited 4 months to see their daughter again, only to discover that she no longer remembered them. The cruelty was almost incomprehensible. What about the other children? Danny, the boy who was unconscious for 8 weeks, has severe memory gaps. He remembers being scared and wanting to go home, but he can't recall his parents' faces or even his last name. The youngest girl, Sophia, doesn't seem to remember anything from before her captivity. Maya stared at the photos of the rescued children on Dr. Chen's tablet. 3-year-old Sophia had been stolen from her family and then systematically had her memories erased until she no longer knew who she was or where she came from. Is there any chance their memories will come back? "Children's brains are more resilient than adults," Dr. Chen said carefully. "With intensive therapy and gradual reintroduction to their families, some memories might return. But we have to be realistic. Some of these children may never fully recover what was taken from them." Agent Rodriguez's phone rang, interrupting the medical briefing. She listened for a moment, then hung up with a grim expression. That was the Miami field office. They just raided an address linked to Client 17 from Dr. Vasquez's database. The house was empty, but they found evidence that children had been held there recently. Evidence? Hospital beds, medical equipment, and security footage showing a van leaving the property about 6 hours ago with what appeared to be unconscious children inside. Maya felt her heart sink. They were always 6 hours behind, always one step too late. How many children were being moved to new locations while they sat in conference rooms trying to coordinate their response? Tommy Chen burst through the conference room door, his laptop in hand and his face flushed with excitement. "I've got something," he announced. "I've been analyzing the communication patterns between Dr. Vasquez and her clients, and I found a common link. All of the major buyers were communicating through an encrypted messaging system hosted on a server in Costa Rica." Agent Rodriguez leaned forward. "Can you track the messages?" "Better than that. I can see real-time communications. And right now, there's a lot of panic chatter about moving inventory to secure locations." Tommy opened his laptop and projected the messages onto the conference room screen. Maya watched in horror as coded conversations played out in real time. Falcon 7, Phoenix operation compromised. Vasquez in custody. Serpent 2, confirmed. Moving package to secondary location. Eagle 1, How many packages affected? Serpent 2. 7 packages currently in transit. 3 packages require immediate disposal. Packages, Maya said, her voice tight with anger. They're talking about children like they're shipping containers. It gets worse, Tommy said. Look at this message thread from 2 hours ago. He scrolled to another conversation. Viper 3. Patterson facility discovered. Lost 4 packages. Cobra 1. Initiate clean protocol immediately. Viper 3. Clean protocol already in motion. Sanitization crew dispatched. Cobra 1. No survivors, no witnesses, no traces. Maya felt the room spinning around her. They're not just moving the children, they're killing them. The clean protocol appears to be their emergency plan for when operations are compromised, Agent Rodriguez said. Rather than risk the children being rescued and potentially identifying other members of the network, they eliminate them. How many children are we talking about? Maya asked, though she wasn't sure she wanted to know the answer. Tommy pulled up another screen showing active client locations. Based on the database records and recent message traffic, we estimate there are currently 30 to 40 children in various stages of the trafficking pipeline. 30 to 40 children who might be murdered in the next few hours to protect the trafficking network. Maya felt helpless and furious at the same time. Can we trace these messages to specific locations? I'm working on it, Tommy said. The encryption is sophisticated, but I've identified at least 3 primary communication hubs. 1 in Dallas, 1 in Los Angeles, and 1 in Miami. Agent Rodriguez was already on her phone, coordinating with field offices in those cities. But Maya knew they were fighting against time and distance. Even if they could identify the exact locations, how quickly could they mobilize response teams? How many children would be killed while they waited for warrants and tactical teams? Maya's phone buzzed with a call from Detective Park, who was still at the hospital with the rescued children. Maya, you need to get over here immediately. One of the children is awake and talking, and what she's saying changes everything. Which child? Isabella. The memory suppression drugs are wearing off faster than expected, and she's starting to remember things, important things. Maya was already grabbing her equipment bag. What kind of things? She remembers other children who were held with her, children who aren't in Dr. Vasquez's database because they were never officially part of the trafficking operation. Maya felt her blood run cold. What do you mean? Maya, I think they were kidnapping children specifically for Patterson's experiments. Children who were never meant to be sold or trafficked. They were just test subjects. The drive to Phoenix Children's Hospital felt like it took forever, even though Maya made it in record time. She found Detective Park in the pediatric ward, standing outside Isabella's room and looking shaken. She's been talking for about an hour, Park said. The more the drugs wear off, the more she remembers. And Maya, what she's remembering is horrific. Through the window, Maya could see Isabella sitting up in her hospital bed, clutching a stuffed animal and speaking softly to a child psychologist. The 7-year-old girl looked tiny and fragile, but there was a strength in her eyes that hadn't been there when they'd found her unconscious. What has she told you? She remembers being taken from a playground in Tucson 4 months ago, but she also remembers other children being brought to Patterson's facility, children who were younger, sicker, more vulnerable. Maya felt her stomach turn. Sicker how? Children with developmental disabilities, children from foster care with no families actively looking for them, children who wouldn't be missed immediately if they disappeared. The full scope of Patterson's evil was becoming clear. He hadn't just been buying children from Dr. Vasquez's trafficking operation. He'd been specifically targeting the most vulnerable children in society for his memory suppression experiments. How many other children does she remember? At least 6, and possibly more. She said Patterson kept them in a different part of the facility, somewhere she could only hear but not see. She remembers their voices, their crying, and then the silence when the crying stopped. Maya felt tears forming in her eyes. The silence when the crying stopped could only mean one thing. Patterson hadn't just been experimenting on children. He'd been killing the ones who didn't respond to his treatments. Detective Park, we have to find that other facility. If Isabella remembers hearing other children, then there's another location connected to Patterson's house. We've already searched every inch of the property. There's no other facility there. Maya thought about the sophisticated encryption systems, the multiple communication hubs, and the coordinated response to the Phoenix raids. This trafficking network was more organized and well-funded than anything she'd seen before. What if the facility isn't connected physically? What if Patterson was just conducting his experiments at his house, but the children were being held somewhere else? Park's eyes widened. A separate research facility where he could conduct more intensive experiments without the risk of neighbors hearing anything. Maya was already on her phone, calling Tommy back at the FBI command center. Tommy, I need you to look at Patterson's financial records again. Specifically, look for property rentals, storage facilities, or research space that he might have been leasing under his real name or any of his shell companies. Give me 10 minutes, Tommy replied. While they waited, Maya and Detective Park sat with Isabella and her parents, who had flown in from Tucson the previous day. Isabella's mother, Carmen, looked exhausted and heartbroken as she watched her daughter struggle to remember their shared life together. She knows I'm her mother intellectually, Carmen whispered to Maya. The doctors told her, and she believes them, but she doesn't feel it. When she looks at me, there's no recognition, no love, just politeness toward a stranger. Maya watched Isabella interacting with her parents and felt rage building in her chest. This family would never fully recover from what Patterson had done to them. Even if Isabella's memories eventually returned, the trauma of this period would stay with all of them forever. Mrs. Martinez, Isabella is a fighter. The fact that she's remembering other children shows that her mind is healing. It's going to take time, but she's going to get better. How can you be sure? Maya looked at Isabella, who was now showing the child psychologist how to braid her doll's hair, a skill that must have survived the memory suppression. Because she's still fundamentally the same person. The drugs can't erase everything that makes her who she is. Maya's phone rang. It was Tommy with the information she'd requested. Maya, I found something. Patterson has been leasing a warehouse space in the industrial district for the past 3 years. It's registered under one of his shell companies and listed as a private research facility. Where is it? About 15 miles from his house, in an area zoned for medical research. But here's the interesting part. The facility has been drawing enormous amounts of electricity, way more than you'd need for simple storage. Enough electricity for medical equipment, enough electricity to run a small hospital. Maya felt her pulse quicken. Tommy, we need to get teams to that location immediately. Already coordinating with Agent Rodriguez. SWAT is mobilizing now. Maya looked at Isabella, who was listening to their conversation with the sharp attention of a child who had learned to pay attention to adult conversations about her fate. Isabella, honey, can I ask you something about the place where Dr. Patterson kept you? Isabella nodded solemnly. You said you could hear other children but couldn't see them. Do you remember anything about how Dr. Patterson would come and go? Did he leave the building, or did he just go to a different part of the same building? Isabella thought carefully before answering. He would leave. I could hear his car starting up and driving away, and when he came back, sometimes he would smell like outside, like wind and dust. How long would he be gone? Sometimes just a little while, like when Mama used to go to the store, but sometimes he would be gone for a really long time, and other people would come to check on us. Maya felt her heart racing. If Patterson was regularly leaving the facility where Isabella was held to visit another location, then there definitely was a second site. And if he was gone for long periods, the second site was probably significant distance away. Isabella, this is very important. When Dr. Patterson came back from his long trips, did he ever bring other children with him? Isabella's face grew sad. Sometimes, but they were always sleeping, and they never woke up while I was there. Maya exchanged glances with Detective Park. Patterson had been bringing unconscious children to the facility where Isabella was held, which meant he was definitely operating multiple sites for different purposes. Maya's radio crackled with an update from Agent Rodriguez. Maya, we're 10 minutes out from the warehouse location. Can you meet us there? On my way. Maya said goodbye to Isabella and her family, promising to come back and visit once they'd rescued any other children who might still be in danger. As she left the hospital, she couldn't shake the image of Isabella's face when she talked about other children who never woke up. The warehouse district was a maze of concrete buildings and industrial infrastructure, the kind of place where you could conduct any kind of research without neighbors asking questions. Maya met the tactical team at a staging area 2 blocks from Patterson's leased facility. The building was larger than she'd expected, a sprawling complex that could easily hide multiple research areas. Unlike Dr. Vasquez's basement facility or Patterson's house, this location looked purpose-built for medical research, with loading docks for equipment deliveries and industrial-grade ventilation systems. Thermal imaging shows multiple heat signatures inside, SWAT Commander Wilson reported. We count at least 6 individuals moving around, plus several stationary heat sources that could be unconscious persons. Maya felt her heart pounding. After 36 hours of being one step behind the traffickers, they might finally be arriving before the clean protocol could be completed. Scout and I are ready to assist with locating any hidden children, Maya told Commander Wilson. We go in fast and hard, Wilson replied. Primary concern is stopping any harm to potential victims. Secondary concern is preserving evidence. As the tactical teams approached the building, Maya noticed that unlike the previous raids, this facility had significant security measures, reinforced doors, security cameras, and what appeared to be an electronic access control system. The entry teams used explosive charges to breach the main entrance, and Maya could hear the coordinated movement of officers through her radio. But, unlike the previous raids, this time there was immediate resistance. Shots fired, came through the radio. We have armed subjects barricaded in the eastern wing of the building. Maya felt her stomach drop. If there were people inside willing to shoot at federal agents, they were either extremely desperate or protecting something extremely valuable. Maya, bring your dog through the main entrance, came Commander Wilson's voice. We've secured the western wing, but we need to search for hidden areas before the subjects in the eastern wing destroy evidence. Maya and Scout entered the building through the blown-out main entrance and immediately smelled the distinctive odor of medical chemicals mixed with something else. Something that made Scout's hair stand on end and brought back memories of Dr. Vasquez's basement. The western wing of the building contained exactly what Maya had expected, a medical research facility that made Patterson's house setup look primitive. Operating rooms, recovery areas, monitoring equipment, and detailed files documenting experiments on dozens of children over a 3-year period. But what made Maya's blood run cold were the research notes scattered across the lab tables. Unlike Patterson's clinical reports, these documents were filled with excited observations about breakthrough discoveries in memory manipulation and behavioral control. One report made her hands shake. Subject 27 showed complete personality restructuring after 72-hour intensive protocol. No memory of previous identity, no emotional attachment to previous life, complete compliance with new behavioral programming. Recommend moving to final phase testing. Final phase testing. Maya didn't want to think about what that meant. Scout was pulling her toward a door marked Authorized Personnel Only, Biosafety Level 3. Maya followed him down a corridor that led to an even more secure part of the facility. Through reinforced windows, she could see into rooms that looked like isolation chambers. Each room contained a single hospital bed with monitoring equipment that was more sophisticated than anything she'd seen at a regular hospital. And in 3 of the rooms, there were children. Unlike the victims they had found before, these children weren't just unconscious. They were connected to machines that appeared to be monitoring and manipulating their brain activity in real time. Electrodes attached to their heads, IV lines delivering multiple medications, and computer screens showing brainwave patterns that shifted and changed as Maya watched. Agent Rodriguez, Maya radioed, I found them. 3 children in what appears to be an experimental brain monitoring facility. They need immediate medical attention. EMTs are standing by outside. Can you access the rooms? Maya tried the door handles, but they were electronically locked, with keypad systems. The rooms are locked. We need access codes or we'll have to break down the doors. That's when she heard it. A voice coming from the eastern wing of the building, where the armed subjects were barricaded. Someone was speaking loudly enough for their voice to carry through the building's ventilation system. You're too late. The final phase is already complete. These children will never remember who they used to be. Maya felt a chill run through her. If the final phase was complete, did that mean the children in these rooms had already been permanently damaged beyond any hope of recovery? But before she could process that thought fully, Scout began barking frantically at one of the locked doors. Through the window, Maya could see the child inside beginning to stir, their eyes fluttering open for the first time. One of the children was waking up, and if they were waking up, there might still be time to save them. But what if waking up was exactly what the people in this facility didn't want to happen? Who do you think was behind this entire operation, and what was their ultimate goal with these children. The emergency medical team arrived within minutes, but breaking into the isolation chambers required specialized equipment. Maya watched through the reinforced windows as the child in the first room continued to wake up, their eyes darting around in confusion and fear. "We need those access codes now," Maya radioed to the tactical team in the Eastern Wing. "Working on it," came Commander Wilson's voice. "We've got the subjects cornered, but they're not cooperating." Maya couldn't wait any longer. She studied the electronic locks and noticed they had emergency override switches protected by glass panels. Without hesitation, she used the butt of her service weapon to break the glass and hit the emergency release. The lock disengaged with a soft click, and Maya pushed into the first isolation chamber. The child inside was a boy who appeared to be about 5 years old, with electrodes still attached to his head and multiple IV lines running into his arms. "Hey there, sweetheart," Maya said softly, approaching the bed slowly so she wouldn't frighten him. "My name is Maya, and I'm here to help you. You're safe now." The boy's eyes focused on her face, and Maya was relieved to see recognition and intelligence there. Whatever they had done to him, it hadn't completely destroyed his awareness. Where am I?" the boy whispered, his voice hoarse from the breathing tube that had recently been removed. "You're in a hospital, but we're getting you out of here. Can you tell me your name?" The boy's brow furrowed with concentration. I think, David? My name is David?" Maya felt a surge of hope. "That's good, David. What else do you remember?" I remember a lady with brown hair who used to sing to me, and a man who would read me stories about dragons. Those sound like your parents, David. We're going to find them and bring them to see you." As the EMTs worked to safely disconnect David from the monitoring equipment, Maya moved to the second isolation chamber. This child was a girl who looked to be about 4 years old, and she was just beginning to stir as the sedatives wore off. "Another one waking up," Maya called to the medical team. "I need help in here." The little girl's eyes opened slowly, and when she saw Maya, she didn't show fear. Instead, she smiled a tiny, tentative smile. "Are you my new mama?" the girl asked in a voice so small, Maya had to lean in to hear it. Maya felt her heart break. "No, sweetheart, but I'm going to help you find your real mama. What's your name?" "I don't remember," the girl said, looking confused. "The doctor said I don't need to remember old things. He said I'm going to have a better life now." Maya felt rage building in her chest. They had convinced this little girl that forgetting her family was a good thing, that losing her identity would somehow improve her life. "Well, I think remembering is very important," Maya said gently. "Let's see if we can help you remember some good things. Do you remember anyone who loved you very much?" The girl thought for a moment, then her face brightened. "A lady who smelled like cookies. She would hold me when I was scared." "That sounds like someone who loved you very much. We're going to find the cookie lady and bring her here." By the time Maya reached the third isolation chamber, the tactical team had successfully captured the remaining subjects in the Eastern Wing. Agent Rodriguez appeared beside her as she prepared to enter the final room. "Maya, we got them. 3 researchers and what appears to be the operations medical director. They were trying to destroy hard drives full of research data when we breached their position." "Did they say anything about these children?" "The medical director is claiming this was all legitimate research, that they were trying to develop treatments for children with severe PTSD and memory disorders, but the files we recovered tell a different story." Maya looked through the window at the third child, a boy who appeared to be about 6 years old and was still unconscious. What kind of story? They weren't trying to treat trauma, they were trying to create it. The research was focused on completely erasing a child's original personality and implanting new memories, new identities, new behavioral patterns. Maya felt sick. They were trying to create programmable children. Exactly. Children who would have no memory of their real families, no attachment to their previous lives, and complete obedience to whoever purchased them. The full scope of the horror was finally becoming clear. This wasn't just about trafficking children for adoption or abuse. This was about creating a supply of children who had been stripped of their humanity and turned into blank slates that could be programmed however their buyers wanted. Agent Rodriguez, how many children went through this program? Based on the files we've recovered so far, at least 47 children over the past 3 years. Some were returned to Dr. Vasquez's operation for sale, others were delivered directly to specific clients, and some what? Some were classified as failed experiments and disposed of. Maya closed her eyes and tried not to think about what disposed of meant when applied to children. The third child began to wake up as the EMTs worked to disconnect him from the monitoring equipment. Unlike the other two, this boy seemed more alert and oriented when he regained consciousness. "Where's my mama?" were the first words out of his mouth. Maya felt tears forming in her eyes. Despite whatever they had done to him, this child's first thought was of his mother. "We're going to find your mama," Maya promised. "Can you tell me your name?" "Tommy," the boy said without hesitation. "My name is Tommy Rodriguez, and I live at 347 Oak Street in Tucson, Arizona. My mama's name is Rosa, and my papa's name is Miguel." Agent Rodriguez looked at Maya with surprise. "He remembers everything." The experiment didn't work on him, Maya realized. His memories survived whatever they tried to do. Over the next few hours, as the three children were transported to Phoenix Children's Hospital, Maya began to understand why Tommy had been able to resist the memory suppression while others hadn't. According to the research files, children with strong family attachments and secure emotional bonds were much harder to reprogram than children who had experienced trauma or instability. Tommy's complete resistance to the memory erasure had apparently frustrated the researchers, which explained why he was still in the experimental facility instead of being sold like the others. His strong memories of his family actually protected him, Dr. Sarah Chen explained as she reviewed Tommy's test results. The love and security he felt at home created neural pathways that were resistant to pharmaceutical intervention. Maya thought about all the children they had rescued over the past few days. Emma, who had quickly recovered her memories because she had only been drugged for a short time. Isabella, who was slowly remembering her family as the drugs wore off. David, and the little girl from the isolation chambers, who remembered fragments of love and safety. And Tommy, whose memories had been too strong to erase at all. But she also thought about the children who hadn't been as fortunate, the ones whose files were marked successful reprogramming or failed experiment, disposed of. 3 weeks later, Maya stood in the conference room at Phoenix Children's Hospital, watching as families were reunited with children who had been missing for months. It was a bittersweet celebration because while 9 children had been saved, the investigation had revealed evidence of at least 23 others who had been killed when the experiments failed or when they became too dangerous to the operation. Tommy Rodriguez was the first to be reunited with his family. When his parents, Rosa and Miguel, walked into the hospital room, Tommy's face lit up with pure joy. "Mama! Papa!" he cried, launching himself into their arms. Maya watched through the window as the family held each other and cried, speaking rapidly in Spanish and English, all talking at once as they tried to process the miracle of being together again. David's reunion was more tentative. His parents, Jennifer and Mark Stevens from Albuquerque, had been searching for their son for 6 months. David recognized them but seemed uncertain, like he was remembering a dream rather than real life. "Daddy?" David said hesitantly when Mark knelt beside his hospital bed. "Yes, buddy, it's me. It's Daddy. And Mommy's here, too. I remember you used to read me stories about dragons." Mark's eyes filled with tears. "That's right, David. Your favorite was the story about the brave dragon who protected his family. Do you want me to read it to you again?" David nodded eagerly, and Maya felt hope that his memories would continue to return with time and patience. The reunion that broke Maya's heart was between the 4-year-old girl and her grandmother, Elena Morales. The little girl's name was Sophia, and she had been missing from a daycare center in Phoenix for 2 months. Her parents had been killed in a car accident the year before, and Elena was her only family. Sophia didn't remember Elena at first, but when her grandmother began singing a Spanish lullaby, something clicked. Sophia's eyes widened, and she whispered, "Abuela?" "Sí, mi amor," Elena said through her tears. "Soy tu abuela." Maya wiped her own eyes as she watched Elena rock Sophia gently, singing the same lullaby that had triggered the memory. But the most emotional reunion was saved for last. Emma Martinez and her mother, Rose, had been living at the hospital for the past 3 weeks while Emma recovered from her ordeal. Emma had regained almost all of her memories and was physically healthy, but she had developed severe separation anxiety and wouldn't let her mother out of her sight. Maya found them in the hospital garden, where Rose was reading to Emma under a large mesquite tree. Scout lay beside Emma's chair, having appointed himself as her personal guardian during her recovery. "How is she doing?" Maya asked, settling into a chair beside them. "Better every day," Rose replied. "She still has nightmares sometimes, and she gets scared when strangers come too close, but she's starting to laugh again. Yesterday she asked me if we could plant flowers like the ones here when we go home." Maya looked at Emma, who was absently petting Scout's fur while listening to her mother read. The little girl looked so different from the unconscious child they had found in the car seat 3 weeks ago. There was life in her eyes again, curiosity and joy that no amount of drugs could permanently erase. "Emma, Scout is going to miss you when you go home," Maya said. Emma looked up from her book. "Can Scout come visit me sometimes?" "I think that can be arranged." Emma smiled and hugged Scout around the neck. "Scout saved me, didn't he?" "Yes, sweetheart. Scout saved you, and you helped save all the other children too." "How did I help save them?" Maya thought about how to explain it to a 3-year-old. "When Scout found you, it helped us find the bad people who were hurting other children. So, by being brave and strong, you helped us rescue them." Emma considered this seriously. "I'm glad the other children are safe now." "Me too, Emma. Me too." 6 months later, Maya stood on the steps of the Arizona State Capitol, watching as Governor Martinez signed legislation that would strengthen penalties for child trafficking and provide funding for specialized K-9 units trained in human trafficking detection. Scout sat beside her, wearing a new collar with a medal that read, "Arizona Hero, K-9 Unit." He had received commendations from the FBI, the Border Patrol, and 3 different law enforcement agencies for his role in breaking up the trafficking ring. But Maya knew that Scout's real reward wasn't the medal or the ceremony. It was the knowledge that 9 children were alive and safe with their families because he had refused to obey a command at a border checkpoint. "Ladies and gentlemen," Governor Martinez announced to the gathered crowd, "I'd like to introduce the K-9 officer whose instincts and courage led to the rescue of 9 children and the dismantling of an international trafficking operation, Scout and his handler, Officer Maya Torres." The crowd applauded, and Maya felt Scout's tail wag against her leg. He still didn't like crowds, but he seemed to understand that this was important. After the ceremony, Maya and Scout drove to Phoenix Children's Hospital for one final visit. The hospital had established a specialized trauma unit for child trafficking victims, and several of the children they had rescued were still receiving treatment there. They found Tommy Rodriguez in the hospital's rehabilitation center, working with a physical therapist to regain strength he had lost during his captivity. When he saw Scout, his face lit up. "Scout! Maya!" Tommy called out, abandoning his exercise equipment to run over and hug them both. "How are you feeling, Tommy?" Maya asked. "Much better. The doctors say I can go home next week. And I remembered something new yesterday." "What did you remember?" "I remembered that my papa used to take me fishing at a lake near our house. And I remembered the name of my favorite song that my mama would sing to me." Maya felt tears in her eyes. Tommy's memories were returning gradually, each one a small victory against the evil that had tried to erase his identity. They visited David next, who was in the hospital's psychiatric wing, working with specialists who helped children recover from severe trauma. David was drawing when they arrived, his tongue sticking out in concentration as he worked on a detailed picture. "What are you drawing, David?" Maya asked. "It's a picture of my family," David said proudly, holding up the drawing. "That's my mama, and that's my daddy, and that's me, and that's Scout." Sure enough, the drawing showed 4 figures standing together, including a dog that was clearly meant to be Scout. "That's beautiful, David. Can I keep a copy?" David nodded enthusiastically and carefully tore the picture out of his sketchbook to give to Maya. Their last stop was Sophia's room, where they found Elena reading to her granddaughter in Spanish. Sophia had made remarkable progress in recovering her memories, though she still had difficulty with some aspects of language and recognition. "Sophia, look who's here to visit," Elena said. Sophia looked up and smiled when she saw Scout. "Perrito," she said, using the Spanish word for little dog. Scout padded over to her bed and gently placed his head on her blanket. Sophia giggled and scratched behind his ears. "Gracias, Scout," Sophia said solemnly. "Gracias for saving me." Maya felt her heart swell with pride for her partner. Scout had done more than just detect suspicious activity at a border checkpoint. He had saved lives, reunited families, and helped bring justice to children who had suffered unimaginable cruelty. As they left the hospital, Maya reflected on everything that had happened since that evening at the border checkpoint, when Scout had refused to obey her command. 9 children were alive and healing with their families. A massive trafficking operation had been dismantled. Dozens of criminals were in prison. But Maya also knew that the work wasn't finished. There were still children out there who needed to be found, still traffickers who needed to be stopped, still families who were searching for their missing loved ones. "Come on, partner," Maya said to Scout as they got into their patrol vehicle. "We've got more work to do." Scout's tail wagged as he settled into the passenger seat, alert and ready for whatever came next, because that's what heroes do. They rest when they can, celebrate their victories when they should, but they never stop being ready to answer the call when someone needs help. And somewhere in Phoenix, a little girl named Emma was planting flowers in her backyard with her mother, laughing as she told Scout's story to anyone who would listen. Because some stories are too important not to share, and some heroes deserve to be remembered forever. 6 months after the rescue, all 9 children were alive, safe, and slowly healing with their families. Scout received the highest honors a K-9 officer can receive, but his real reward was simpler, the sound of children's laughter replacing the silence of fear. Sometimes the smallest acts of disobedience lead to the greatest acts of heroism, and sometimes it takes a dog to remind us what it truly means to protect and serve. What's the most incredible thing about this entire story to you? Scout's instincts, the children's resilience, or the power of never giving up? Share this story with everyone you know, because these heroes deserve to be celebrated, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to hear more incredible true stories that will restore your faith in humanity. Let us know in the comments below where you're listening from around the world.